All right, what's up, everybody? It's been a while. Let's see if I remember how to do this. It's been a couple weeks. Haven't put out a video in a while, as you guys know. Haven't streamed in a bit, but that's what today's going to be all about. Going to kind of give you guys an update on what's going on with my current contract, what's going on with YouTube, where have I been, what's going on with the job hunt. This is kind of a surprise live stream. I didn't really announce it, so the Q&A section might be a little shorter because I'm not really expecting that many people to actually show up because, like I said, surprise live stream, and I've been away for a while. So let's go ahead and check in with the chat real quick. We got Sonkit. Welcome. First, as always, welcome to the Patreon community and the Slack channel. Sonkit, good to see you. Shivam, good to see you. Insidious Media, what's going on? Apple, bye. Hey. So let me just jump right in. I do have to go play basketball in a little bit, so this is kind of probably going to be just a quick half-hour update slash Q&A. Again, Q&A might be a little light, but so let's just dive into the updates. Let's start with well, first let me apologize for kind of, if you've emailed me, DM me, or try to contact me on LinkedIn, all the various ways you can contact me, and I've been unresponsive lately. I apologize. As I've mentioned before, not everybody saw my last live stream where I'm involved in this crazy contract right now. It's not so much crazy, the timeline is what's crazy. We're supposed to launch by March 2nd, and all the stuff we have to do by March 2nd, which is rapidly approaching, is kind of crazy. So, like I said, it's not like it's a super hard project. It's just the timeline is way, way shorter than it should be. So anyway, all my time has been focused on that. That's why I haven't put out YouTube videos. That's why I'm slow to respond to your comments, slow to respond to your DMs. Again, I talked about that in my last live stream like 2-3 weeks ago, but for those that didn't catch that or the new subscribers, that's what's been going on. I'm not like quitting YouTube. I'm just kind of have to focus on this contract like 10-12 hours a day, and it's not going to get any better during these last 3 weeks because that's crunch time. We have to be on the App Store by March 2nd. It's February 11th. Not much time left, so that's where all my time's been focused. So that's what's been going on there. That kind of leads into the job hunt update, and it's kind of weird because my plan was to do this contract and also be applying and doing job interviews at the same time. But as I kind of just alluded to, this contract is taking up all of my time. So I really don't have time to be like interviewing, because if you haven't gone through the interview process, it's kind of a full-time job. If you're applying to 15, 20, 30 companies, you're constantly on recruiter calls, you're constantly doing phone screens. And if you do make it to the final phase, which is typically the on-site, like that's an all-day thing. That's 5-6 hours going to wherever it is. You have to travel. When I say travel, I mean like a commute. Maybe it's a half hour or whatever. Long story short, that takes up your whole day. And like I just mentioned with this crunch time contract, like I can't be giving up those days. So I think where my head's at with my job search is I'm going to just wait until after I finish this contract. Again, March 2nd is the deadline. Just being completely transparent. It might go a little over that, but early March we'll call it. So I think that's when I'm going to really start focusing on my job hunt. Not because I don't have time to do the interviews, but it's not only just doing the interviews, but it's also all the prep that goes into the interviews, like all the studying, if you guys saw my Facebook vlog, like from a year ago, the last time I went out on the job hunt, I was practicing whiteboard questions all day. I was doing coding challenges all day. Like I want to be at the top of my game when I go to these interviews, not like, holy crap, I barely had time to study. Like you guys all remember that feeling back in school. It's like, wow, I didn't study at all for this test. And then you just go into it. Like that's how I feel like I'd be going into interviews if I did the interview process right now. It's because with this contract, just don't really have time, to study for it. And I don't want to go, to these companies that I really want to work for unprepared and not at the top of my game and then have to wait like another year to apply again. So I've applied to a couple, near the top of my list, mainly because they're looking to hire right now. So I do have some interviews like lined up and in the works, but definitely not the full-time, all out, full-blown interview mode. That'll probably be mid-March when I kind of finish this contract and get back to normal. So that being said, let's check my notes here. So let's talk about this contract real quick that I'm on. Like, basically it is, I can't say exactly what it is, NDA purposes, but it's essentially a elementary school math app. And the reason I want to bring this up is because it's the most dynamic app I've ever made, and I've had to create this app differently than I've made any other app. And I'm going to dive in more into this like once it's out on the App Store. I'm actually going to start a series called My Apps, where I go through all the apps that I've built one by one and talk about like, oh, here's what was challenging, here's what was cool about this app, we use this technology, just kind of a high level overview from a developer's perspective, so you guys can get a feel for like what, the types of apps I'm building, contracting. Anyway, this app is like an elementary school math app. And the reason I want to talk about this and it's interesting is there's like hundreds of different screens I have to build. Now, don't get me wrong, they're similar. So I'm not designing and building, 100 different new screens from scratch. But like I said, it's basically like a math app. So you're going to get hundreds of different math questions, grades 1 through 5. And, I have to display those differently. If you can remember back to elementary school, you get math problems, you get asked different ways, whether it's pictures, graphs, just a straight equation. So it's been fun, is actually, I'll call it fun. It's been fun to kind of learn how to make an app that dynamic to where there's just so many different variations. And it's all done client side. It's not like, oh, let me just wait till I get what I get from the server and I'll just display what I get from the server. We're doing all the question generation and everything client side. So that's been interesting. But again, 2 weeks left to finish that. Gonna have my head down doing that 10 to 12 hours a day over the next 2 weeks. And then I'll be glad when it's over. It's been rough. I enjoy the app. It's going to probably be the best one in my portfolio. So I'm very happy to be working on it. But just due to this timeline that I've mentioned, I don't have time for anything else. And I'm ready to get back to normal. I'm ready to get back to YouTube. Like, that's a good segue into the YouTube updates. Like I've been away for, 2-3 weeks now. And like, I miss it, to be honest with you. And this kind of also segues into where I want to go with my career. Like I've been going back and forth. Before I said I definitely want to get a full-time job at a major company. But now that I've been away from YouTube, now because the backup plan was to continue contracting and like go all in on YouTube, like start producing a lot more content and start building the business around this channel. That's kind of the backup plan if the big companies don't work out. But now that I've been away from YouTube and I kind of miss it, I'm kind of like, oh man, that's looking more and more attractive. The backup plan is looking more attractive. So I guess I shouldn't even call it a backup plan anymore. It's kind of like, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm still going to really enjoy, this being the major companies, I'm still going to really enjoy building this YouTube channel. So I can't kind of lose, that's a good thing. I'm going to enjoy, both outcomes. So that also takes a lot of the pressure off the job interviews as well, So anyway, let's kind of dig into the chat here real quick. Actually, no. Let's go back to the YouTube updates. I got sidetracked. So, I told you I finished this contract in early March, and then I go away for like a wedding back home. I'll be back late March, like March 20th, roughly. When I get back from there, that's when I'll be back not full-time YouTube, but that's when the YouTube videos will get back to normal. Probably about 3 a week. We'll be back into it. So expect that. I'm probably going to do a mega vlog about this job search. And the reason it's going to be a mega vlog is because I don't want to release it until the outcomes have happened. Like, I don't want to be releasing vlogs about my job search and talking about my thoughts and, oh, I like this company or I don't like this company when I still have, I'm still in the process, right? Like, I don't want to give away all the secrets. So once that's all done, once it's been resolved, whether I get hired somewhere or I decide to stay contracting and build up the YouTube channel, that's when I'll release this mega job search vlog. And it'll be like, excuse me, it'll be like overtime. It'll be like timestamp, like January 25th, I had this call, and you'll get to see the whole process for all the companies. And then you'll find out, what happens. So I'll be building that during this time frame. And then, like I said, mid-March, get back to the regular videos, regular live streams. And I'm excited to get back to that. I miss it. So, all right, that's pretty much it for the updates. Let me check my notes real quick before getting into the chat. Like I said, this is probably a quick one. Yeah, all right, let's dive into the chat real quick. So go ahead, if you have questions, go ahead and ask. Looks like there's a couple. Like I said, as soon as I get done with the questions, I'll probably take off. Got to go play some basketball. But let's check in here. So Songa says, how's your mining going? Making any money? So I won't go on too much of a tangent because you guys are here for iOS stuff, not mining stuff. But yeah, I do have a mining rig. I have 5 of the 6 graphics cards. If you're a gamer, I apologize. We're ruining the graphics card market. But I have a 6-card rig, and I have 5 of them so far. Got to get the 6th one. But yeah, it's going so far. But it's going well. The main reason I'm doing it is to learn more about that aspect of it. I'm not so worried about the profitability of it. I just want to learn more about the mining side of the crypto world. Praveen, hey, what's going on? The 7, hey, Shashik, 8th, everybody's counting, yeah. Like I said, not too many people. There's about 30 people in here, but like I said, I didn't expect much because I've been gone for so long, and this was just like a surprise, gonna go live. So just to kind of wanted to give you guys a quick update, really. These live streams are nice because I don't have to prepare content. I mean, I make notes about stuff I want to talk about, but I don't have to think of a video, edit a video, post it, all that stuff. So during this crazy crunch time next month, of my contracting stuff, I might pop in and do live streams here and there, but that's about it. So this Evan, where do you practice coding questions? Leak Code? No, I have Cracking the Coding interview book, and I literally have a whiteboard in my apartment that I take a Sharpie out and draw on the whiteboard. And I highly recommend doing that more so than typing. Yes, Leak Code, and there's a couple other sites, HackerRank I was using too. Those are great questions, and it's great to like type it out on a computer. However, it's a completely different animal when you're actually in the interview and you just have a marker and a whiteboard and you have to actually write it. I know it doesn't sound like a major difference, but it really does. I mean, you can't copy paste, you can't quickly delete. So you have to. It sounds like a little minute detail, but it really makes a difference, especially when you're in the interview and you're nervous. But just like spacing out, making sure you have enough space to write all the code on the whiteboard. And just anyway, long story short, you definitely want to get practice on an actual whiteboard with a marker and writing more so than just typing on a computer. Definitely get practice doing that. But as far as to answer your question, like I said, I used HackerRank and Cracking the Coding interview book to get my questions, to practice those type of questions. And then the iOS questions, honestly, just my iOS interview question series really covers a lot of the basics there. So I'm probably going to rewatch all my videos. It's kind of funny. I'm helping myself out here. And then honestly, just my day-to-day work, like networking and stuff like that. Like I do that every day in my contracts. So my day-to-day work is kind of like studying for the iOS side of things. It's really just the computer science whiteboarding questions that I really have to like take extra time and study for. The iOS stuff I'm not too worried about. Again, I sit here and code Swift 10, 12 hours a day. So, I'm pretty good on that, I feel. All right, so next question. Have you heard of ClassKit coming out with? Don't think I have. I thought I heard. Yeah, you might, Matt. If you can expand more on that. I don't know if that's Apple's education thing or if that's like a third party thing. Definitely, I'm gonna Google it after the stream. I think I have heard of something like that. iOS 11.3 might be useful for your app. So to answer your question, obviously I don't know much about it, so I'm gonna look into it afterwards. Cool. Praveen says, how do we use core machine learning? Just import core ML and you're good to go. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't actually messed with core ML yet. It's one of the few frameworks I haven't at least touched, at least on a tutorial level basis. Just like I said, I've been very, very busy the past month. So I don't have much to tell you on core ML, except it is on my to-do list to make a video on, and I do want to dive in and start learning it more. Just haven't done it yet. Pavan says, hey bro, can you please give some tips on how to get a contract job for Indian? So if you mean your race doesn't really matter, but unless you're talking about in India, if you're talking about in India, then I don't know because I'm not really familiar with that market. I guess it's from what I've heard from people that have talked to me on this channel in comments, like I guess React Native is a much bigger deal over there. Or just hybrid development in general, whether it's React Native or whatever other framework. So I would look into that, but that's just what I heard. I can really only give tips on the American market, specifically the Silicon Valley market. I can give a lot of tips on that, but the Indian market, I'm not too sure about. So what's going on, Alex? Adam, what's going on? Matt says, I have an interview tomorrow where they want me to demo an app I've made along with the code for it. What do you think they'll be looking for in the code? So I've done interviews like this where you build an app and then you go into a conference room and then you like airplay your code and you're just like literally like giving like a presentation like you would back in school, and you're just walking through your code, talking about it. The ones I've been in, they really let me drive the conversation because they want to see like where my head was at. They're not steering me. They're like, okay, explain your app. And what were some challenging parts? They kind of really want you to drive the conversation, and then they'll pop in with their own questions based on, stuff you say. So I would actually practice that, Matt. I'm sure you might be doing that. Like literally practice giving a presentation on walking through your code, talking through the highlights, like what were the most challenging parts? They definitely want to know that. What were the most challenging parts and how did you solve them? They definitely going to probably ask something along those lines. And then just be able to explain your code. So I'm not saying you did this, but I'm using an example because I've even been guilty of it sometimes. Sometimes when you're building a new feature, you copy and paste a lot of code. Maybe it's from a third-party library. Maybe it's a Stack Overflow answer. Maybe it's from a previous project or a friend helped you with it, whatever. Just make sure, even though it wasn't your code originally, like whether you got it from somewhere, just make sure you understand what's going on. Your answer can't just be like, oh, I got that code from somewhere else and it worked, so I just put it in. Even though it may be the truth, you can't give that answer in an interview. So be able to explain pretty much every line of code and why it's in there. So that's kind of my advice for those types of interviews. I actually like these kind of interviews. I wish a lot of them were like that, but yeah, so good luck with that. Simovan says, hey, what's up? Wesley, what's going on? Good to see you again. Yeah, good to see you streaming. Yeah. If you just popped in, I gave all the updates, Wesley. Just make sure you watch the replay for the updates on where I've been. I'll be back soon. I haven't quit YouTube. Give me a few weeks to finish this contract and we'll be back to normal. Like I said, just wanted to pop in for a quick update. Pavan said, let me know some tips to win a contract job for Indian. So when it comes to like winning a contract job, I understand what you're asking. I've never really been in this position to where like I have to, like they're interviewing 7 other contractors and I'm trying to make a bid to win the contract. I just haven't been in that position. If you follow me, like you guys know, I work with a development agency where they find all the contracts, they deal with the customer, and I basically just code for them essentially. I have done a couple contracts where it's not through an agency, it is just through a person, but those have all been through, and you've heard me say this a lot, my personal and professional network. So these are people I know, they've worked with me before, they've known me for a long time. So there's no like interviewing. It's kind of like, hey Sean, do you want to build this? Or do you have time to build this? And so there's no like interview process typically. And I get that not everybody is in that position. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have the knowledge and the experience to give you a good answer on that because I've never really had to interview for a contract. Shivam said, so that being said, you guys may say, oh, you're lucky on that. I would not disagree with you, but I would also say that build up your professional and personal network. That's the number one piece of advice I always give to people looking for contracting. That's where I got all my contracts. And once you build that up, whether it's through Twitter or just working at various development agencies or companies, you'll build that up over time. But that is what's really going to make contracting so much easier is when, like I said, you don't even have to really interview for contracts. And it's all like incoming leads. Like I don't go out there and like, search on websites for contracts or just try to apply for jobs. Like it all just is incoming. And most of the time I have to turn them down because I'm already too busy. So like I said, I know that's a very fortunate position to be in, but I would just recommend everybody to strive to get to that position with your network. And I know it's hard to start, but yeah, that's my advice there. As you suggested, the book Advanced Swift, I bought the book and completed the first chapter, but in the second chapter, I'm facing a hell of a lot of problems, collection protocols. So is there anything that can help? Yeah, like if you followed my videos, I've done chapter 1 and chapter 2 videos. Don't get me wrong, I haven't quit that series. Those videos are coming too, again, back when I get back to YouTube in mid-March. But yeah, I do remember chapter 1 being like, cool, this book's nice. And then chapter 2 being an extreme ramp up in difficulty. I shouldn't say difficulty, but they really get into the weeds in chapter 2 with the collections and protocols and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess I can just relate to you, Shivam. I do remember it being like, wow, this is a real step up in difficulty. Watch my video for chapter 2. Maybe that'll help. But yeah, I remember having to reread that chapter a couple times. And I fully expect that to be that way with that book in general. Like, it's not a book that you can just sit down and casually read. Like, it's one of those books where you're going to have to like read it, read the page or read the paragraph, think about it. Okay, reread it. Think about it, reread it again. Like it's a tough book to get through, but in a good way. Like you're going to learn so much doing it that way. Yeah, that's I want to set expectations for anybody that gets that book. It's not going to be a casual read. And you're going to have to like really study and really try. Wesley says, we'll watch tonight. Got to head off again. All right. Good to see you, Wesley. You're probably already gone. PP says, hey, Sean, love your videos. I'm programming an iOS app and wondering if you have any core Bluetooth resources. I'm trying to send live image data to my phone. So I haven't really worked with core Bluetooth a lot. My first startup I worked at was very heavy into core Bluetooth. But by the time I started at that startup, all that foundational Bluetooth, because long story short, it was an app that talked to a device via Bluetooth and did that. By the time I joined the company, all that like framework had already been built, so I didn't have to really mess with the Bluetooth stuff. I just had to build like the consumer-facing app. So I don't really have a ton of experience with core Bluetooth. My apologies, PP. Can't really help you much there. And that's the thing with development is, this is why I have no problem saying I don't know, is because as you guys are aware, there's so many frameworks, there's so many things to know. It's just impossible to know or have worked with every single framework, every single technology. So that's why it doesn't bother me at all to say I don't know, because it's just impossible to know everything. And I want to tell you guys that because I do get a lot of people emailing me and stuff saying they feel like they're struggling, they don't know everything, and I just wanted to let them know that it's okay to not know everything. Like the main skill in programming is the ability to learn fast. And that being said, like say I did have to make a core Bluetooth app. I'm comfortable digging into the documentation. I know how to read Apple's documentation. I know how to build new stuff from there. I'm confident. Give me a couple days, I could easily build a core Bluetooth app. So the main skill in programming is learning how to learn, learning how to read the documentation, learning how to pick stuff up quickly, or not pick stuff up quickly, but like, just learning how to, like I said, learn is essentially, I know it's vague, but so that's kind of my little rant there. Kian says, is application development jobs being outsourced outside of the US or is still in high demand? I'm a CS student. I'm scared I won't get a job. Again, Kian, I'm in a weird spot because like I'm in San Francisco / Silicon Valley, so the demand is certainly high here. Everybody's still looking for iOS developers. Outside of this little bubble, which I get is like a little bubble, I can't really speak to that. I'm not sure if the job market's super tough. I do know the competition's tough here for sure, and it's not easy to get a job here, but there's certainly people, looking. I have not had, especially in contracting, like I said, between the professional and personal network, I've had no issues finding work. Absolutely, some of it does get outsourced, but typically what happens is, and what I'm running into when I've done a couple of like introductory interviews so far, and a lot of them have been like, yeah, we outsourced our MVP. Now we're looking to bring development in-house to like really get serious and build this thing fully out. I've run into that case a lot where it gets outsourced in the beginning, and then when it's time to, I don't know if get serious is the right word, but time to like really flesh it out and really get a solid product, then they bring the development in-house and hire on developers. Matt says, do you have any experience with iOS system design interview questions, such as how would you make a Twitter client? How would you make Snapchat? Yeah, I've gotten a couple questions. It wasn't specifically like, how would you make Twitter? How would you make Snapchat? It was more so like, you're building a chat app. How would you structure your data? And they want to know like what classes you would make, what, how kind of the architecture around it. And obviously those types of, when you're actually building an architecture, it takes a lot of time to sit down and think. So during these interview questions, they just want like an overview to make sure you kind of understand how to, basically segment off your code, and all the class hierarchy and stuff like that and how things communicate. But yeah, Matt, I would say I've gotten that question in the 30 to 40 interviews I've done, probably 2 or 3 times. So it's not super common, but I would definitely be ready for it because it wouldn't surprise me if you got that. Sorry, I can't pronounce this name. Sorry about that. Wow, Sean here. Nice to see you again. Yep, like I said, just popping in for an update. Your videos helped get me the job as a mid-iOS developer in the UK. That's awesome to hear. These are like my favorite things to hear is that, and I get this, not super often, but I do get it kind of often. And I'm actually going to make a video kind of about my, success stories from people from my channel because I have saved like emails and Twitter DMs, and obviously I would get their permission before using them, of 5 to 7 people that have said like, your channel has helped me so much get a job. Like I got a job because your interview question series, like, thank you so much. They asked exactly what you said. So that's awesome to hear. That makes the channel all worthwhile, all the hard work that goes into it. And it makes me want to keep going. So thanks, Ulad Zilao. Sorry, I probably butchered that. I'm sorry. That's awesome to hear. Congrats, Adriatic. Nice to see you again. Good to see you. Sangha says, you answered a lot of our questions. This is just me trying to return the favor. Read all the answers of Sif Kafagi on Quora about Facebook hiring. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. And anybody that's interested in that, check that out as well. What's going on, guys? Yes, but okay, yeah, they're talking. Matt says, thanks for doing what you do, Sean. I've learned a bit from your videos. Best of luck with the contract deadline. Thanks. Yep, and like I said, I'll be back. Give me about 3 or 4 weeks. I'll be back to normal. And then I'll be ready to start making some videos. Like I said, I miss it. Yeah, a few questions on interviews was from his videos. Yeah, like I said, that if you're going to an interview, watch that iOS interview question series. I'm not saying they're going to ask everything, obviously, but I guarantee you a lot of it will be from those videos. So if you're comfortable with everything in those videos, you should be well on your way. How much does it cost to live in Cali currently? It's expensive. I mean, obviously this is a vague question because, even in San Francisco, like I live in downtown, which is probably the most expensive place. But, even if living in a different part of the city is cheaper. So we'll just say it's expensive. It's not cheap. But however, that being said, if you get a full-time job as a developer here in San Francisco, you'll be fine to pay your bills. If you're just supporting yourself, if you have like a family of 5 and you have to support in the city, that's pretty rough. Not gonna lie there. But if it's just you and you get a job as a developer, you'll be able to afford the cost of living here in California. Hi from Russia. What's going on? Job market of iOS developer job versus job market of Android developer. Which one is higher demand? Well, I'm not familiar with the Android job market because I'm not a part of that. I can only speak for the iOS developer demand. And as far as here, again, I can only speak for here in America, specifically Silicon Valley. There's still plenty of demand. There's jobs posted all the time. I'm getting hit up by recruiters every day. Certainly not a lack of demand here, at least in this area and in America. Again, outside of America, I don't know. And then Android, again, I don't know. Can't speak for that. I just know iOS developers, I think it's still thriving from what I see in my little bubble. But that's all I can really say. What's going on? Glad to see you. Question about to learn how to learn advice. Trying to learn Alamo and feeling difficult for me. Yeah, and so I know that was kind of vague, so I'll expand on it a little. It's really just experience. Like the more you do something over and over again, like the repetition is the key. I don't know if you guys have ever played sports or ever practiced anything, whether it's piano, a musical instrument. Like coding is no different. It's just practice, repetition. You know, I can do a table view in my sleep because I've made 100 of them. Whereas when I was first starting out, I was like, self-road index path, what is this? Like I couldn't even remember that. So yeah, it's just repetition and advice. You're trying to learn Alamo Fire, I assume that is. I remember the first project I used Alamo Fire and it was difficult for me, even though I knew how to use networking. Now Alamo Fires I use in every project and I know it like the back of my hand. So I guess experience and repetition, just stick with it. Hard work, all the key buzzwords. But yeah, I just want to, say that there's no real like trick, no book you can read that'll do it. It's really just putting in the work, repetition, just doing it over and over and over again. And contracting is nice for that because, you get to work on a bunch of different projects, real quickly. You're only working on it for like 2-3 months and then you're on to the next one. At least the way of the contracting I'm doing. Whereas, like I've mentioned this before, the first year and a half of my career, I was at a startup, I was working on one code base. So once all the networking was done, I didn't touch networking for like 6 months because I was building a different section of the app. So where I'm going with this is my learning has been accelerated a ton by contracting and by just knocking out contract after contract after contract due to that, like I said, that repetition. That's the answer. There's no magic bullet. Just kind of put in the work and keep doing it. Shivam says, so is there anything that could really help my resume to be out of the box anything you could boot up and give a phenomenal impression to the interviewee? So if you're just looking at quick first impressions, I would definitely say the design of it. There's mixed opinions on this. I'm not a resume expert, let me just tell you that, but I have gotten tons of compliments on my resume. If you haven't seen it, just go to seanallen.co and then scroll to the bottom, you'll see CV and you can see my resume. But it's designed. It's not just a white piece of paper with black text on it. There's some design behind it, and that has really stood out and really impressed a ton of people. As far as like the content on it, it's just the typical resume content is what's on mine. It's just presented differently. So I would say presentation. Don't get me wrong, you still have to have the content and the substance to back it up, but the presentation is gonna, when that resume comes across their desk, they're gonna be like, oh, what's this? And then they're gonna give it, maybe more than the 6-second look that you always hear about, because it's designed nicely and laid out nicely and it's easy to read. I'm not saying design it nicely for just to make it look pretty, right? It's just like when you're building an app, you're building your UI and UX of your resume, right? People get these resumes all the time. They just skim them. If you can make your resume super nice looking, very easy to read, very easy to skim, that's better for you. Hey, Sean, newbie here. Can you point me in the right direction? I'm looking for interactive tutorials. If you're willing to spend some money, definitely check out Let's Build That App, Brian Vong's channel. Just Google Let's Build That App. You'll find it. He sells like some Instagram courses, and he sells a lot of very in-depth courses. I haven't done them personally, but I've talked to a lot of people that have done them and heard nothing but great things about them. So if you want a really in-depth tutorial on building like one app, like I think his main one is the Instagram course where you'll rebuild Instagram. I would definitely recommend that. It does cost money though. Would you recommend Treehouse to someone who is trying to become a self-taught iOS developer? Yes. Treehouse was one of the first things I did. Don't get me wrong, Treehouse alone isn't going to do it. But as Treehouse as one of the things you do, I also recommend raywonderlick.com. Everybody always asks me to type that in because, people can't understand what it is. So type down into the chat. Not affiliated with them, but I always recommend them. It's $20 a month for all their videos. And it's the best $20 a junior dev can spend, in my opinion. You can spend all day going through those tutorials. So Treehouse, Ray Wonderlick, and then just building projects. I guess Arasan, the answer to you is yes, Treehouse, but not only Treehouse. Do more. Yoel says, hello, Sean. It's been a long time. Yep, what's going on, Yoel? Good to see you. If you haven't if you're just stepping in, catch the replay. I give my update in the first 5 minutes of the stream on what's going on. Long story short, just popping in to give a quick update because it's been a while. Do you use Firestore? I don't even know what Firestore is. Maybe your Firebase. Is that what you're talking about? If it's Firebase, no, I don't use Firebase. All my projects have a full-time backend developer working with them, so it's all custom backend, and I just consume that API he gives me. And if you do mean Firestore, I don't know what that is. Matthew says, hey, Sean, how do you like the Advanced Swift book? Should I buy it? Matthew, I'm only through the first 3 chapters. I kind of got sidetracked with this contract. Like I've mentioned before, I sound like a broken record. It's just on a super tight timeline. Haven't really had time for much else. But I would definitely recommend it. Yeah, for sure. It really depends on where you're at. If you're just starting out, maybe hold off on it. But if you've done, like I mentioned, all the Treehouse, the Ray Wonderlicks, you've built a couple side projects, and you're ready to take the next step, that's when you buy it. If you're just starting off, it's gonna be a lot. What language that you prefer in your U.S. market that iOS developers should have command of, as primary? Is it Swift? If so, what are secondary and tertiary language that I should know or in demand? Between iOS developers, obviously it's Swift and Objective-C, and then, where you want to go should depend on what you focus on. So the older established apps like the Facebook, the Twitters, those are mostly written in Objective-C. Basically, any app that's been around for longer than 3 or 4 years is probably going to be in Objective-C unless they've made a huge conversion. But any new app that's been around in the last 3 or 4 years has a greater chance of being written in Swift. So if you're looking for a newer app, then go ahead and focus on Swift. But if you definitely want to be at one of these older companies, the Twitters, the Facebook, I would focus on Objective-C there. Sorry, getting a phone call. And then secondary and tertiary, I only really know Swift. I know a little bit of HTML, CSS, JavaScript just to make my own website. By no means would I say I'm ready to get a job in that language, but I can hack together my website. But as far as that goes, it does help to know the backend language so you can communicate with your backend web developer or even build your own. But I wouldn't say it's mandatory. If you're just learning, I would just focus on Swift. I think people get caught up when they're just learning that they try to learn Swift, JavaScript. They try to learn so much at once, and it's hard enough just learning one language. So you're just really making it harder on yourself trying to learn multiple languages at the same time. So I would focus on one, whatever that be. Let's just, for the sake of this channel, let's call it Swift. And then once you feel comfortable in Swift, once you build a couple apps in Swift, or once you even have gotten a job in Swift, then maybe branch out. But even then, I'm 3 years into my Swift career, and I still feel like I have so much to learn in just Swift. So I'm even in no rush to learn other languages. So that would kind of be my advice. I think people try to learn too much too soon, and then they're barely okay at all 3 languages, and they're not really good at any one. Typically, obviously, you could be a genius, and you can learn all 3 at the same time. Go for it. That's awesome. But most people can't. Thank you for the answer about how to learn. How about some pet projects? Which one you'll advise to improve skills? Thanks a lot. You're the best, man. I always say people that are looking to get jobs and contracts, make little small projects that demonstrate the the common things you see in most common apps. So how to use a camera. So build a small, and when I say build a small project, don't try to think that you have to think of an idea that, oh, this has got to go on the App Store. This has got to be a bestseller on the App Store. No, the only reason you're building this is to learn and then showcase your skills in your portfolio. So when I say build a camera app, you don't have to build the next Snapchat or Instagram. Just build something that utilizes the camera, video, AV foundation that can show off that you can do that. So when you are getting interviewed or an employer or trying to get a contract, you can be like, yeah, I can work with the camera here. Here's an app I built. And they can pull up the app and see that you know what you're doing there. So that was just the camera example. Do something in MapKit. Do something with Bluetooth, do something with iBeacons, or that's not very common. I don't know why I said that, but just kind of go through like your phone and see what kind of, make an interesting collection view. Just kind of go through your phone, see what other apps are doing that are very common. If only one app in the world is doing it, don't mess with that. But if there's a feature or a table view or a type of collection view that you see across a lot of apps, like a feed, like a Twitter feed or an Instagram feed, like build an app based around that. Long story short, take the common features and build small apps around that to learn, and to B, demonstrate that you can do it for interviews. So that's what I would do. Because like I said, going back to when I started contracting, that's when my learning really picked up. And that's because I built 7 different production apps within a year, and all were varying types. I mean, from payment tracking to food tracking to elementary learning to like a walkie-talkie type app. I mean, I just got to touch so many different technologies over this year that I learned so much. So variety is the short answer there. Any info about the plans with Patreon? Thank you for your answer. P.S. Short name will be Eula. Okay, there you go. Thank you for that. So I turned off, I didn't turn off Patreon. So if you are a patron, if you're not, patreon.com/Sean Allen, check it out. I didn't charge them for the month, or I turned it off basically for the month of February because I'm kind of away. I'm not really putting out content. But it will be back in March. And like I said, when I come back in March, I'm going to be full bore back into building the YouTube channel, building the community, interacting in the community with my Slack channel and everything. Like I said, I have kind of neglected it just because I've been so busy, and I feel very, very bad for that. However, I am going to dive headfirst back into it in mid-March when I kind of get back to normal. Where do you get your dope basketball shirts from? Just NBAshop.com. None special. Gary says, "Yo, Sean, nice to see the live stream again." Thanks, Gary. We're back. Well, I shouldn't say we're fully back, but I might pop in. So I'm going to be fully back in mid-March. I'll probably do one more live stream between now and then just to pop in. But like I said, all my focus has to be on this contract that I need to finish. Like it's to the point where I'm like not even sure it's going to get finished. Like it's kind of that like stressful. It's going to be tough. It's going to be an interesting next 3 weeks. Anytime, if you've ever released an app or if you haven't, this is good insight. And I should probably do a vlog about this. What's called crunch time, like the 2 weeks leading up to an app, where it's like, even if you think you're almost done, like so much little stuff pops up, and then, you have to go through the rounds of testing. But I think I should document what goes on during that, the crunch time of the, leading up to the launch of an app. Cause it's a lot. Lab9 says, "Thanks for the advice, Sean. I'm trying to learn Python as a friend suggested it to me. Would you agree Python is good for beginners, specifically those on the wrong side of 40? Love your channel." So yeah, Python's good. Python's definitely, again, I don't know Python, so I can't speak very intelligently about it. But from what I hear, Python is definitely a very popular language. There's plenty of opportunities in Python. However, if you're here on my channel, I'm assuming you're interested in Swift and iOS, or you're just like me, either way, I don't know. Then I would make sure you're learning what you want to be in. For example, if you want to be an iOS developer and you want to be writing Swift, I wouldn't be messing with Python. I would just dive right into Swift. However, if you do want to be a web developer or whatever you're going to be building Python in, then absolutely stick with Python. So I guess my answer to your question is whatever you want to be when you grow up, learn the specific language for that. That would be my advice. Ali Hussein, "I'm a college student. Besides knowing Swift language, what should I know to be an iOS developer?" It's a very broad question. Okay, so you're taking out all the programming language aspect of it. Then I would go with the soft skills, which I argue are just as important than your dev skills. I've said before, my very first job, I didn't get hired for my dev skill. I was fresh out of a boot camp. I didn't know anything. Like looking back, like I knew nothing. But I got hired because of my attitude, work ethic. I showed initiative during the interview process. I don't want to go into that story. I've talked about it a bunch in my videos. Long story short, I got hired because of my communication abilities, emotional intelligence. Like they just liked me because at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not saying it's a popularity contest, but the people hiring you, they want to make sure they will enjoy working with you. Like if you're a dickhead, like they're not going to want to work with you no matter how smart you are. So if you say, what should I work on besides programming? Then I'm definitely going to say communication skills, emotional intelligence, show that you can work hard, have a good attitude, be humble. Those kind of things will go a long way. Because like I said, when you're interviewing, it's not all about how good of a developer you are. You have to be able to play nicely within a team. Yoel says, trying to build a framework, any good tutorials or docs? So I have not yet built my own framework, Yoel, so I don't have any experience in that, just to be blunt and short there. That's awesome. I'd be curious to hear about what framework you're trying to build. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't really help you there, as I have not done that yet. Abdi says, I don't know or like AV Foundation. Yeah, AV Foundation's rough to deal with. Is it fine if I only use the camera and save photos and pull photos? Well, I guess it depends on your app and what you're trying to build. If that functionality is fine for what you want in your app, then sure. If you're cutting corners because you don't want to deal with AV Foundation, that's not the right answer. And while I get that AV Foundation is not the easiest to work with, it is very, very common. And I guess what I'm going to say here is you just got to suck it up and learn it. And even though you don't like it, you're going to need to use it at some point, just because it is, very, very common to use. And you're not going to be able to run away from it your entire career. So I would bite the bullet and just go ahead and learn it now. Arasan, I'm building a simple recipe manager / saver app. Do you think it's a good idea to showcase in my portfolio? If it looks good and you're proud of it, then yeah. I mean, not every app is in my portfolio. Like, if you look on my website, I only showcase 3 apps, and I've probably made 7, 8, or 9 in my entire career, because I only want to show what I'm proud of. Sometimes, especially in contracting, when you don't get to, at least in my situation with my development agency, I don't necessarily get to pick all my projects. Like I said, the agency goes out and finds the customers, and they say, here, Sean, here's an app, build it. So I don't necessarily get to pick what I work on. And even other contractors where you are just working with it, sometimes you just need the work. So you're like, yeah, I'll take it, even though you might not enjoy what you're working on. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So that's what I said. Sometimes everything you build, you're not going to be the most proud of. But if you are super proud of it and you want to show it off, then yeah, absolutely, put it in there. JD says, hey, how's the job hunt going? Hope you haven't answered this already. I have, but I'll give a quick synopsis because I assume a lot of people have jumped in, because I answered it right at the beginning, which was 45 minutes ago. Time always flies when I'm on these things. I do have to go in like 5 to 10 minutes, but that's good. There's only like 3 questions left. So I'll finish up these questions, or if you have any last minute quick questions, we'll do kind of like a lightning round. I'll answer them really quick. Go ahead and ask them now. I'll probably be taking off in like 5 to 10 minutes. So the real quick job hunt is, because this contract is like taking up all my time, I have applied to a couple companies excuse me, that I really want to apply to because they're looking to hire like soon. So I have applied there, but this contract is taking up all my time that I don't really have time to be prepping for interviews and actually going out on all the interview, because when you go to an on-site interview, like the final round, that's an all-day thing. And with only two weeks left to launch this app, like I can't be giving up days like that. So long story short, when I'm done with this contract and I have to go do some traveling, I'll be back in mid to late March. When I get back from there, that's when I'm really going to go hardcore into the job hunt. A, because like I said, I just don't have time to do the interviews, but B, when I go on these interviews, I want to be like at the top of my game. Because again, with this contract, I don't have time to study. I don't have time to be doing all the whiteboard practicing. And when I go to these interviews, I want to be ready. I want to be at the top of my game. I don't want to just be like I gave the analogy earlier of like when you back in high school or college or whatever, when you didn't study for a test and you just go in and take the test anyway. Like, I don't want to do that with my interviews. I want to be well studied for that test when I go in. Because the way it works is like once you interview and it doesn't work out, you got to wait like a year. I mean, there's no hard set date, but you can't just apply the next month. You got to wait some time before doing it. So long story short, I've kind of put the job hunt on pause, except for, a small chunk of companies. But the major job hunt has been on pause for now. But I'll keep you guys updated on how it goes, because the companies I am applying to now are at the pretty high on the list of the ones I want. So, I'll be excited if one of these works out. Aaron says, hey, Sean, do you find it harder / confusing to work on a sophisticated project while using storyboards? What do you think about building everything out programmatically? So I do have a video. This has been, if you follow iOS dev YouTubers on Twitter, this has been a hot topic lately on Twitter. A lot of people talking about this. I said from the beginning, I'm a big fan of the right tool for the right job. So for example, I typically tend to like to use storyboards, but if you heard me talk about my contract earlier in the stream, where I mentioned this is the most dynamic app I've ever had to make, meaning that so if you weren't here, it's an elementary school app, basically math problems 1 through 5. If you can remember back to elementary school, there's tons of different ways they can ask you math problems, graphs, pictures, just equations, whatever. Long story short, there's like hundreds and hundreds of different math problems that I have to display on the screen. So doing that in storyboard is just not the best thing to do, obviously. So this app has been 100% programmatic, and that's fine. And I've been enjoying that. However, I shouldn't say 100% programmatic, 80% programmatic. So like I said, I believe in the right tool for the right job. I'm probably always going to have some element of storyboards. So for the very simple static screens in your app, when I say static, like they don't change. It maybe like the welcome screen or like a login screen or whatever. Like I like to do those in storyboard. They're simple, whatever. Storyboard will take me 5 minutes to do. I like that. However, complex, dynamic, reusable, UI elements, whether it's a view or a button or a screen, I do those in code. Because anything that's reused a lot, like I said, whether it's a certain type of button that's reused throughout your whole app, like do that in code. Like that's so much easier to do than like styling it every time on storyboard. Long story short, I believe in the right tool for the right job. I'm probably always going to use a hybrid of both. Whether it's 90% storyboard, 10% code, or 90% code, 10% storyboard, that depends on the project and what is demanded of it. So my opinion on this is to know both, and again, use the right tool for the right job. That's my take on it, and that's how I go about it. Like I said, this current project has been 90% code, 10% storyboard. My other projects have been 90% storyboard, 10% code. Like I said, I do what I have to do. I don't really have like I said, I'm sentimentally on Team Storyboard just because I feel like it gets it gets bashed more than it should. That's what I feel. So I lean to stick up for storyboards every once in a while, but again, I think you need to know both and then use the right tool for the right job. Okay, I think that was this question actually up here. Any tips for finding an apartment in San Francisco? Have money. It's just expensive. I didn't have issues finding an apartment. It was just, finding one that, you wanted to pay for. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's not that there's a lack of openings. It's just, how much do you want to pay? And what part of the city do you want to be in? What type of commute do you want to have? Meaning if you're fine to take BART, then just anywhere near a BART station is good. If you don't want to take BART, then maybe look somewhere different. So yeah, this is a pretty vague question. Gary, if you know what part of the city you want to live in, I could probably give you some more advice, but that's too vague to give specific, useful advice anyway. Yes, I'd like to learn iOS too. I have some great ideas for mobile apps, but I've started Python and feel as though I should continue to learn this also. Yeah, Lab, I'm not going to say, learning both eventually is going to be good, for sure. I guess what I'm saying, the common thing I see, like I mentioned before, is people try to learn 2 languages at once and then they get discouraged and quit. And I don't want to see you quit. So if Python's what you started on and you're making progress on Python, definitely stay on that path, because once you know one language, learning a second one is 10 times easier than learning that first one, because all the basic programming concepts are the same, for the most part. You just have to learn the new syntax and kind of learn how this language works. But that is much easier to do than just learning how to program from scratch. So yeah, stick with it. That's the main thing. Whatever language you pick, just stick with it. Storyboard is programmatic. I've answered that one, and I'm gonna have a video. I have a whole video outlined about this that I just haven't had a chance to make yet. So we'll get there. Glad to see you on the stream. Hope you'll be often to provide it. Yep, like I said, I'll be back to normal back in mid-March. I'll probably do one more stream between now and then. Get a job offer through prepping with your videos. They're great. Thanks so much. Yeah, honestly, I've gotten, I don't get flat out job offers, right? Because from the video, but I definitely get interviews from the video. Like someone from YouTube and Google reached out and said, hey, I'll pass on your resume if you want. So I'm like, yeah, sure. And that was from seeing my channel. So the channel definitely helps get the interviews. I obviously have to perform in the interviews as well. And, like I kind of mentioned before, you're also interviewing them. So not every interview that comes in, is like, oh, I really, really want to work there. I'm also interviewing them. Is this a place I want to work? So it's a 2-way street. I think people forget that a lot. Sean is shifting to the dark side. Welcome. Not like I said, it's right tool, right job. This is probably the most I've used programmatic though. My main thing against programmatic coding isn't it's just the clutter in the code base. Maybe I'm just a little OCD. I just don't like having so much, UI code in my code base. But yeah, I'm not going to say I'm fully shifting to the dark side. Like I said, it's always going to be a hybrid of coding and storyboard. What percentage depends on the project. Depends on how much I need to reuse views or not. James Kim, love your videos. Thank you. Where's a good place to stay if you want to visit SF? Personal preference. So I'm I like city life. Like I love living in like downtown city life. Like that's what I like. So I would say downtown financial district. That's where I live. But you know, I know that's not for everybody. If you want to see more of the touristy stuff, you can stay near the Fisherman's Wharf. That's close to the Golden Gate Bridge. That's Fisherman's Wharf is obviously a big tourist attraction. But that's a very touristy area. So if you're into that, that's where I would stay. Yeah. Long story short, the city of San Francisco is not big landmass wise. So no matter where you stay, you're not going to be far from anything. So I guess it really doesn't matter. If you're just visiting, it doesn't really matter. You'll be able to get to where you need to. Hey, Sean, can you tell a little bit how you did negotiate your hourly rate with contracting agency? Thanks. So with the contract agency, that's just part of that was just kind of like salary negotiation, because that I did have to interview for this contracting agency. I know if you've been here the whole time, I said I haven't really had to interview for contracts. That's because to get in with this agency, I had to do an interview. But once I was in with this agency, I just get the contracts. Like I don't have to interview for each contract. So all that took place during that. Like that was just like a typical job interview. I'm not negotiating like per contract. I haven't negotiated a raise just because my hourly rate's going up. And I feel like I've performed well for this agency. So, and with this agency, it's not like a huge company, right? It's like a small, team of like 6. So, I've gotten to know the owner of the agency well. And like, we just talked on the phone, and it was a casual conversation. It wasn't anything fully. And that's just because of the situation I'm in. Like I said, it's a small team. We've gotten to know each other. It was pretty casual. So it wasn't a big deal to like ask for a raise there. Is Firebase professionally used? Is it similar to firing off calls with custom server? I hesitate to say it's not professionally used, just because I don't know for sure. And I'm sure if I say, no, it's not professionally used, someone's going to jump in and say, yes, it is, so-and-so. So it might be. I don't see it very commonly, mainly because it doesn't scale super well. When I say scale well, not technology-wise, but price-wise. If you look at the pricing for Firebase, and again, I haven't looked at this in like a year, so maybe it's changed. If it has, happy to be wrong, correct me. Once you start getting to like 100,000 million users, like if your app is very successful, like Firebase becomes very, very expensive. At least that's how it used to be. Might be different. So that's what I mean by it doesn't scale well. So it's good to get like a MVP off the ground or your initial 1.0. But just know that if you do see some success, you're probably gonna have to convert to a custom server. That being said, I don't have much experience with Firebase. I don't know, it just doesn't get used in my contracting circles. So I'm happy to be very wrong about Firebase. I can't really give intelligent opinions, but I gave you an answer anyway. But I guess what I'm saying is don't take that as gospel. It could very well be wrong. All right, last question. Sean, if I'll be in the area, will I have the privilege to get a beer with you? Sure. I've been thinking about doing a meetup because I do get, there are a couple subscribers in the Bay Area that have asked like, hey, can we grab a coffee? Can we do this? And like I've mentioned with this contract, like I don't have time for anything. I have 2 weeks to get this app out the door. Long story short, I have been thinking about doing like a little mini meetup. And I'm not saying I'm going to get like 100 people, but it might just be like 4 or 5 people to just have coffee or beer or whatever, just to chill. And it's a good way to like network and get to know other developers in the area. So y'all, yeah, let me know when you're in town. Hit me up on the Twitter DM or whatever. And yeah, it's I don't know when you'll be here, but if it's from now until mid-March, time's going to be tough. But if it's after mid-March, then my time's back to normal and that's more possible. So yeah. All right, guys, that's going to be it. I got to head off to basketball. It's a good update. Good talking to you guys. It's been a while. I kind of forgot what streaming was like. But yeah, I'll be back to normal in mid-March, back with regular videos, regular streams. We'll see you guys then. See ya.